She's going to sink, Captain.
But she can't sink. She's unsinkable.
She can't float.
I'm an archivist at the Archives, Dulwich College. We're looking at a photograph of the science fifth form in 1906. In the centre sits the form tutor, Lawrence Beesley, who taught science at Dulwich College from 1904 to 1909. You'll see that just above the photograph, Beesley's name has been pencilled in, and beneath it are the words, "On Titanic," in brackets. Beesley was indeed a passenger on the White Star liner RMS Titanic, which famously struck an iceberg while crossing the Atlantic on her maiden voyage in April 1912 and sank with the loss of over 1,500 lives. Remarkably, Beesley was one of the survivors. Within months of the disaster, his book, The Loss of the SS Titanic, Its Story and Its Lessons, was published. A copy of the second edition is held in the college archives. At first glance, it may appear an insignificant volume. However, this book is considered one of the finest accounts ever produced. In it, Beesley not only gave an eyewitness account of the tragedy, but also offered recommendations which ultimately led to changes in the maritime laws governing the structural design of ships and navigational standards. Beesley was born in Derbyshire in 1877. He graduated from Caius College, Cambridge, with a first in natural sciences in 1902. 2 years later, he joined the college as science master. A form and class list for 1905 shows that, in fact, he taught all three sciences, biology, chemistry and physics. While still an undergraduate, Beesley married Gertrude Macbeth, but their marriage was short-lived. In 1906, she died, leaving him a widower with a son at the age of just 34. 6 years later, Beesley made arrangements for his son to be looked after, and he bought himself a second-class ticket on the Titanic for £13, purportedly to visit his brother in Toronto. His ticket number was 248698. When the Titanic struck an iceberg just before midnight on Sunday the 14th of April, Beesley was reading in his cabin. He said he only noticed a slight heave of the engines, but when he felt they'd stopped altogether, he went to investigate, still wearing his dressing gown. A steward told him there was nothing wrong. However, he returned to his cabin, got dressed and went back onto the top deck, starboard side, where lifeboats were being filled with women and children. Despite a rumour that men were to be taken off on the port side, he remained where he was. On the understanding that there were no more women and children on the top deck, he was told to jump into lifeboat 13. At 4:45 a.m., the RMS Carpathia rescued the survivors and headed for New York. It was on board the Carpathia that Beesley wrote his first account of the disaster. It was quickly published in newspapers around the world. Unbeknown to Beesley, he'd been listed as among the lost, and it was only when his friends and family read his newspaper article they realised he'd survived. He stayed in America to write his full-length book, which was published to international acclaim. Beesley returned to England, where he continued teaching and eventually remarried. He remained a committed Christian Scientist, wrote religious tracts and instructed others. Naturally, he was often asked to speak about the Titanic, and during the making of the 1958 film A Night to Remember, he acted as an uncredited technical advisor. Macabrely, the director asked him to reproduce, on tape, the cries that the lifeboat survivors would have heard as the ship went down. But Beesley had a different role in mind. Having survived the disaster in 1912, he now sought to experience it vicariously. He got in among the extras and tried to remain on deck for the sinking scene. Unfortunately, the director spotted him and, using his megaphone, asked him to leave the set at once. Undeniably, Lawrence Beesley had a long and eventful life. He died in 1967 at the age of 89.